Welcome everyone. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun today. We're hopefully gonna cover some pretty advanced concepts with calculated fields to lead to kind of more in-depth visual creations. So I'm Dylan Morozowski. I'm a cloud developer at Westloop Strategy. We are an advanced AWS partner with specialties in QuickSight and AWS Analytics. We've done a lot of exciting work with our clients to develop complex dashboards that tell an important story with their data. So today I really hope to provide you with a little insight on how we make that happen. So I want to go ahead and jump right in here because we've got a lot to cover. Just a quick idea of the agenda. So I really want to focus on like an example use case because I think these things are a little bit more digestible if we could put a little bit of a real world spin on it. And this is a solution that I've actually had to implement. So it's not some ethereal thing. It's this has made a big change in how I do things in my day-to-day job. So we'll set that situation up for the demo. And then we're going to kind of jump in. So my thought here is we're going to be going back and forth a little bit. I really want to talk about some of these concepts so that they kind of click with everyone a little bit more easily. And then we'll jump right into QuickSight. We'll be working in an embedded view of the console that we've made. So that's called Loop. You'll see that it's going to look a little bit different than QuickSight normally does. But we'll explain a piece of it. We'll jump in. I'll show you how it's done. And we're going to kind of go back and forth. So we're going to be focusing on things like multi-value parameters and controls, utilizing those multi-value parameters in a calculated field. We're going to create groups with controls utilizing a dense rank function. And we're going to build a horizontal stacked bar chart where our y-axis will be our custom group names. Our x-axis will be a percent value. So in this case, we're going to be utilizing sales. So it'll be the percent of total sales selected within all groups that one specific group encompasses. For me, on these like bar charts, I think like percent values just look really nice. And we'll manage the color by as well. We'll jump into tooltips a little bit with some of these calculated fields. And then just for an idea of kind of what this is going to look like in terms of what calculations, I mentioned dense rank. We'll use max over, sum over. We'll use the in calculation. And we'll be nesting some if-else statements within our LACW functions. So there's a lot to get into today. It should be a lot of fun. So kind of how we're going to get started. So our example use case. Let's say you have a client or internal work that needs to get done, and the reader needs to be able to custom select people, customers, clients, for a group, right? In this scenario, we're going to have 3 groups. So my client says, I want to be able to select arbitrarily or specific to my needs customers that could fit into one of 3 buckets. So we're going to do 3 groups, A, B, and C. So it's something that the reader can manage. It doesn't matter who the reader is, this is going to be totally dynamic. Customers can overlap for each group. I think that's important. Doesn't matter if it's selected in 1, 2, or all 3. Sales of the customer should be returned for each selected group. Then our bar chart should display percent of total, total for selected, not like across the whole company. So they have to at least be selected in one of the 3. And then in our tooltip, as you can see, I want to return things like the number of customers they selected, the sales for that group, the percent of total, and then that total value. So, this is going to be a part of over $1 million total. And then our color by is going to be something that we would want to then implement across the whole dashboard. So we only want to manage those colors one time, and I'll show you how to do that. And the nice thing about this is going to be a spot where we're going to actually hit an error. It's kind of like a fun limitation, so I'm going to show you what to do to fix that as well, which I think will be good. So how do we jump in here? So we want to create 3 groups. I call them inclusive groups because, like I said, if a customer is selected in one of the 3 options, like it can be selected in any or all the buckets, right? So we're going to create 3 inclusive groups. Our data does not contain these groups for the customers, and we want them to be edited dynamically. The reader should be able to manage them on the fly. So how do we do this? We want to create these groups, and we'll figure out how to determine the value we want to display. So another thing is, I want these 3 groups to always show in my visual. So if you have nothing selected in any of them, I want them to still exist. It'll just be empty buckets. So I think that's important too. They'll always show group A, B, and C. We are not going to apply most of our filters directly on our visual here. We're going to manage them mostly in calculated fields. And we need to find a value. So the best way to describe this is, to make these groups, I'm going to find the lowest level granularity in my data, and I want to rank it. And this is just because no matter what, I want my groups to exist. I want it to think we're pulling from something. And then we're going to manipulate QuickSight after that to actually get our real values. So this is going to seem a little arbitrary, but I'm literally going to take the dense rank of our order IDs, because that's something that repeats a ton. Every customer has a bunch of these, so we know that these values are going to exist no matter how much we filter this visual. So I'm going to dense rank our order IDs, leave that partition empty, and then I'm going to build the groups this way. So with that rank value, it basically is creating a row number, right? So we'll have rows 1 through however many rows that we have total. So maybe in this case, it's something like 20,000, 30,000, a large number. So I'm going to create my groups just by saying, okay, based on that max order, or that max rank, right? So if it's 20,000, that's what we're looking at. I'm going to create group A by getting all orders that are between 1 and 1/3 of our total value. So if it's 30,000, 1 and 10,000 will be group A, 10,000 to 20,000 will be group B, and then 20,000 to 30,000 will be our group C. So I've kind of talked about this a little bit, so I want to actually jump in so that we can start looking at this. And just for reference, I wanted you all to see this because I think this helps paint the picture a little bit. This is what we're working towards. I have 3 different buckets selected here. I have them populating in this visual with the number of customers that we selected, the dollar amount that they manage within that total group, and the total value. And then you can see, it populates things in this insight and this map. We're not going to go through all of these today, but I want to make sure that you see, why would I start working towards something like this, right? We're going to get to here. So if I go back, we need to start with our dense rank calculation, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add my calculated field. Just going to say rank orders. I've got this right here. Oops, 1 second. All right, so dense rank, we're going to have the rank of our order IDs. We want to pick something that is definitely specific to each order. Descending, this again doesn't matter. It can be ascending or descending. Partitions open, so this is going to encompass all of our data. And pre-ag. Pre-ag specifically just so if this value, or if our visual gets filtered, then our rank is going to change to encompass that. So something that I want to do is, bring this to a single year. Well, we'll only have order IDs for that single year. So pre-ag makes sure that when our values are reduced on the visual, that will be managed here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save. Okay. And just for reference here, I've already populated a few things at the start. So I've got my 3 parameters, right? So group A, this one I have all values selected because I want them to populate for one of them by default, but it's a string, multi-value. This, if you don't know, is our recommended default for a string. If you want, select all to be your default. So that's what we're doing there. And then for the other 2, I just have them populating as blank by default. So no values will populate. Everything's going to exist in group A by default, and then the user can manage these afterwards. So we have our 3, we have our orders, and now we're going to make our group names field. So this is just going to make sure we're returning all three of our group values no matter what, right? So we say if else rank orders is less than or equal to, and we're using max over here because I just want the highest value. And this is a nice trick because you can compare an unaggregated field with an aggregated field or so on. Like max over just seems to play better with the rank function, and we don't get any errors here. So that's the main reason I'm using this. No partition because it's just max for all of our data. And I want to multiply it by 1/3. So this, which I am going to put parentheses here just so we know order of operations is being listened to, and then this will be group A. So group A is just checking for any orders that are ranked less than 10,000. If we have 30,000 total, right? So then if I wanted to just bring in my other ones, I'm just going to copy them in so we don't have to go through the whole process of typing here. Okay, so now we're going to do the same for our other two groups like I mentioned before. Greater than 1/3, less than 2/3, group B. Greater than 2/3 will be group C. Again, arbitrary. This isn't actually returning the values we want to see. It just makes sure that when I turn this into my stacked bar chart and I add my group names field, it guarantees I have all three. So I'm going to make sure and sort these how I want. And again, this is doing nothing else now, right? This is just literally 3 counts of orders. So now we want it to do something. So I'm going to do our, let's go ahead and, I think we actually want to jump back. Let's go ahead and look. So we made our inclusive groups, we added them to the visual. Let's keep chugging forward. So now we want to actually get that percent of sales value for each group. So we want to be able to filter to the selected customers, and that's going to be managed in our calculated field. So now instead of doing like a filter on the visual, I'm going to be doing a sum over for each group, where we're going to look at who is selected in customers group A. And if you haven't worked with multi-select parameters in a calculated field, you're going to have to check using the in function, okay? And there's a second trick here. So if we have values populated, other than select all, we can check for specific customer names in that group. If we don't have specific values populated, we have something like, and we have select all chosen, that is going to be checking for null. So here, I'm like, look for specific customers in the group, or see if null is returned, and then we're going to return sales. So it's either going to return sales for selected customers or for all customers if that's been managed. So then if we wanted to think about, like, so this is for our numerator, right? If we're getting the percent for our selected group. So then if we want the value for the total selection, I'm going to be checking group A, B, and C all together here, and we'll manage them that way. So numerator, denominator. I wanted you to see this split up because when we get it all together in a single calculated field, it's going to look a little daunting. But this is strictly what we're doing. If we have the group A value returned from our group name function, I'm going to return sum over of customers in group A divided by sum over customers selected in any group. So with these core concepts, we should be able to make our percent. So groups, we're going to call it percent value. I'm gonna copy and paste this in first, and then we can look at it a little bit more to digest it. So we've got our big if else statement. A little daunting, but not too crazy, right? I tried to break this up so you could see. This part on top is exactly what we were looking at, right? So if our group names field is returning group A, then I'm going to check the sum over of sales for customers in group A. And we're going to divide it by our sum over of sales for customers selected in any of our three groups. And this is going to repeat for group B and group C. So when that group B is returned, doesn't matter that we use these arbitrary order IDs, right? We're ranking on that, doesn't matter. We just need that text string to return, because then we can do whatever we want, right? So group A exists. I'm going to create my actual percent value for that group, and we're going to hit save. Hopefully I named all my things correctly. It looks like I did. We added. What you're going to see, it's going to default as min. If you haven't worked with these LACW aggregations a lot, they return the same value on every row that they encompass. So for this, right, it's going to return that value for all of group A's. So we don't want to sum or average or whatever. If we use min or max, we'll get the exact value we want. Sorry, I'm just trying to select some options so we can see as this starts to populate. And we can get these values. Okay. And hopefully they're good groups. Okay, that's the boring part. We'll stop with that. Okay, so we have three groups. We're getting percent values. We can update this to a percent field, and we can keep moving along. So I know now we're going to want to manage colors. Also, again, every time you make one of these changes where you're like, all right, I want it to be ascending by group name, when you start adding things, subtracting like into the visual, it's going to mess up your formatting, and it can be a little frustrating. So sometimes wait and format at the end so you know you get what you want. All right. Back to our slides. Colors. So, sorry, my pictures are a little blown up, so they're a little blurry, but we want it, basically we're going to handle the color by in almost the same way that we're doing the y-axis. The main difference is going to be how we bypass this error we're going to hit. So, and you have to have two different calculated fields, even though it's literally going to be the same thing, because you can't use the same calculated field in the y-axis and the color by. So it's a little weird, a little goofy, but it does the trick. So we're literally going to use the same function that we used for group names, and we're going to make that our group colors field. And what you're going to see here is I have a backup calculation, because when I try to use this, the big rank orders max over calculation, I'm going to get a failure, but that's okay, because all we need is for group A, group B, and group C to be returned options. When we do this, then we can switch to the field that we actually want to use, or switch to the calculation we actually want to use. So let's do this one. We're going to call this guy group colors. And you're going to see here, I'm going to paste in the calculation that we want and the fake calculation with comments. So here, because I want you to see the error first. So we'll keep this for later. This is the same thing we used for group names. Hit save here, everything looks good. We'll add group colors. And now I want to go hit edit field colors, and here we're going to see our error. Something with the complexity of the calculation is causing this to fail to retrieve our values. You know, this could be a frustrating moment, but instead we're just going to say, okay, how do we make sure that we can get those values to return? Because if I can set a color to group A, it doesn't matter if I change how we get group A afterwards. I just needed to know that's what it's looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these, delete our comments. Perfect. Re-add them here. And if you haven't noticed this, it's a little fickle. We want our commented code first. So it'll save. Boom. All right. So let's close this so it forgets that we wanted to do that. And now when I say edit field colors, boom, we get what we want. And the nice thing is I'm doing this in the data sign, in the data pane. When I select these, every time I use this color by now in my visual, it's going to return the colors I've selected. I think this is a great feature. So we only have to do this once. We'll pick some fun colors. It's not really going to be fall colors or winter colors because we're going to pretend that that's not happening outside. We're going to think it's going to be the spring. So let's just do a couple nice options. Boom. Okay. Now it feels like Easter, right? So again, you're like, whoa, this is not doing what I want. That's totally fine. We made our fake thing. We can delete that. Now, when I put the calculation that actually works, we're going to get what we want. Good. Okay. We have colors. Now we can format our visual. So the tooltips, I think, is the main thing here. I know I'm coming up to my 30 minutes here, so I want to try to make sure we get the full visual setup here. I'm going to create a couple quick calculated fields. It's going to be following the same method that we used for the percent, right? We're going to check what group our group name field is returning, and we're going to return the numerator from the percent field on its own. We're going to return the denominator from the percent field on its own, and we're going to return a count of customers selected in each. And we can do a few things to get the visual that we were looking for in the original thing that I showed. So let's go ahead and add. We'll do our, I'm going to call this, we'll start with customer count. That's a good one to start with. We'll say groups, customer count. Okay. So again, group names equals group A. Doesn't matter, that has nothing to do with anything. We're just like, I have group A as a string, perfect. Distinct count over, nested if else, if our customer name is in group A or null is in group A, give me that customer ID. And let's get that count, okay? Now, if we want our sales value for just the sales value for the group, not the actual like percent, I'm gonna call it groups value. So again, group names is group A. This is gonna look familiar. It's the same thing from our percent, but without the division. We're just gonna get our sales per group. I'm gonna hit save. And then lastly, we'll do the total value. Go, because our percent value gives us some of the information we're looking for. It makes our visual look the way we want it to. Is it actually going to do what I want this time? Nice. Okay, group A to C. A couple quick tricks. I don't need to see group names or sort. I want my visual to be visible, or my names to be visible. Because we've done this as a percent value, I'm just going to have a custom range from not 0 to 2. That doesn't make sense. We're just going to do 0 to 1 because I just want I want it to be on that scale, right? I want 0 to 100%. Probably shouldn't have done that when I did because it's going to freak out at some point, I think, but we'll see. And I want to add my data labels. Clicked the Powered by QuickSight button down here. There we go. Data labels, extra large so people on the screen view these. All right, so we're getting our percents. I want to add my tooltips. So here, what you're going to see is it's going to be a bit repetitive, right? Because we have colors and group names returning the same value. So immediately I'm just like, all right, hide colors. I want to see my customer count. Again, these are LACW aggregations. So I want to use min or max. Count of customers. I want to move this up. We're going to do the individual group value, sales per group. Move that up because I'm going to have my percent on the bottom here so we can see. And then I'm going to do groups total. Now, when I hover, I'm going to see Group A, the count of customers selected in Group A. Oh, and we can do two more things real quick just to make sure this looks right. So we want our values to be currencies. Now, there we go. So we'll see 20 customers are selected in Group A. Group A accounts for almost 500,000 sales and a 1,200,000 total sales for the year, or for just in general. So now, last touch, let's get our date. So we can still, because we've used pre-ag in all of our aggregations, we can still filter to this year. So let's just say start of this year and today. That works. Apply. All right, and there you have it. Now, updated for this year, custom groups with the dense rank calculation, we're able to get this visual.